help us understand the background and the story there?
Thank you, Dean. And yeah, this is particularly interesting and appropriate and tragic. And I actually grew up in Los Angeles in the 50s and the 60s, and somehow grew up thinking that we here in Los Angeles didn't experience the kind of racial discrimination that Alabama and the South were going through. We didn't see drinking fountains that were labeled white and colored. I grew up in schools that were integrated. So I somehow thought we here in Los Angeles County maybe escaped the kind of severe racial discrimination that other parts of the country went through. But right here in Manhattan Beach, in the early 1900s, there was an African-American couple named Charles and Willa Bruce. And they purchased beautiful beachfront property in Manhattan Beach and turned it into a resort for African Americans in the Los Angeles and surrounding areas. And remember, this was a time that African Americans weren't particularly welcomed at the beaches. In fact, I did know of a story of an African American, a great civil rights leader here in Los Angeles, H. Claude Hudson, who was arrested for swimming in Manhattan Beach in the 40s. So we did have that. So they had a Black beach resort where African Americans from all over came and enjoyed themselves and, had this beautiful, again, beachfront property that they enjoyed. Well, the surrounding city of Manhattan Beach, both the residents and the actual city government did not treat them very well, and in fact began harassing them. We do know that there was a chapter of the Ku Klux Klan that actually were harassing them. We know that there were nearby residents that wanted to make it impossible for African Americans to even park and then make their way to this beachfront property. So there was clearly an unwelcoming feeling from the city of Manhattan Beach. Well, Well, the city government in the early 20s sort of caved in to that pressure and harassment and unwelcoming feeling that they had. So they declared eminent domain. Not only on this property, but on some other properties where some other African Americans had purchased close to this resort. In eminent domain, right, if a government declares eminent domain and takes property, it has to be for a public benefit. And so they told people that they were going to build a park for the enjoyment of everyone, and that's why they took the Bruce's property. Well, that property sat vacant for 30 years. Until someone, a grad student, I believe, did a thesis on property, the taking of property, and pointed this out. So then in the meantime, the city of Manhattan Beach transferred that original beachfront property to the state of California. And it was almost like they wanted to, you know, wash their hands a little bit of the whole incident and get rid of the property altogether. Then the County of Los Angeles was given that property back in 1995 just to run the beach so that we had complete control of the beach. So this was really just brought to my attention recently. There are still descendants of the Bruce family that are alive and well. I actually had a Zoom call with the great-great-grandson, Anthony Bruce, who told me, you know, of that family's kind of pain all these years about what might have been. And when we talk later on in this discussion about the income gap, the wealth gap, you'll see how this is a specific example of a family that by any standard would have been millionaires many times over with beachfront property in Manhattan Beach, and how it was the city government through their policy of eminent domain not only took their property, but deprived them and their descendants of a good deal of wealth.
I stand before you today as the proud author of SB 796. And my 10+ years here in the legislature, I don't think it's going to be a more impactful bill that I can be involved with in recognizing the impact that this will have on not just one particular African-American family, but it's going to set an example of what reparations should and could look like, not only here in California, but in the nation as a whole. Yesterday, we had our first reparations task force that I'm honored to serve on, and I thank our pro tem for appointing me to this task force. For those of you who don't know, in 1912, an African-American couple by the name of Charles and Willa Bruce bought a piece of land in Manhattan Beach. They bought it with the intentions of living out their American dream of owning a business, but also adhering to those rules that existed at that time, separate but equal. They started a resort, a bathhouse, a dance hall, a restaurant to cater to the African-American population. And from the day that business was established, it was successful. But that success infuriated many of the individuals in the surrounding areas. More importantly, their white neighbors. And the Bruce family, as well as the other 6 families who acquired land along Manhattan Beach, were harassed continuously, not only by the KKK, but law enforcement. They had their tires slashed. They had their facilities burned, their houses set afire. But despite all of this, the Bruces and those neighbors remain consistent. It shouldn't be lost on us that just the day before yesterday, we recognized the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. And many folks says, well, what's the similarity between what happened in Tulsa and what happened in Manhattan Beach? The difference is no one lost their lives in Manhattan Beach, but they did murder the dream of African-American families who believed in doing the right thing. As I stated, they purchased this property in 1912 for $1,225. And again, they were harassed constantly. And In 1924, when the Klan could not finally run the Bruces off and the other six families, the city of Manhattan Beach took it upon themselves to use something that we're all familiar with, eminent domain, to take their property. And as we've seen also in what's called the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, they used eminent domain after burning down that town to prevent those communities from rebuilding. They took this property in 1924 and finally removed them from their land in 1929, never to build a park. The land sat vacant until 1948. At that time, it was transferred to the state of California. In 1995, the state of California deeded the land to the county of Los Angeles. And from there, they built a lifeguard training station. This bill simply begins the transfer of returning this property to the rightful owners. And I want to thank the courage of Supervisor Janice Hahn and the 4 other amazing women on LA County supervisors that had the courage to do the right thing and help correct this horrible wrong that happened here in California. When I introduced this bill, the people asked, was it unique? And as we've seen, this is not unique. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of stories like this. This is just one where it's still, this land, other than the lifeguard station, still sits as it was in 1929 when they raised the facilities from that property. This bill will not provide justice, but it is a small measure to return and recognize the wrong of this family. We eliminated generational wealth from this family and the surrounding folks who lived on this land. This bill is a model of what economic justice should look like in this country. This bill will not erase, as I stated, those horrible acts, but it represents a restorative justice and a clear step in the right direction. And I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Madam President.
Another beautiful prayer and just words to think about. And we're here today. This governor could have been anywhere in the state. He could have easily signed this bill in the Capitol, but he knew the significance of what this day meant, what this legislation meant, not only to the family, not only to this community, not only to the state, but to the nation. Today, with his signature on SB 796, it's going to show the rest of the world what reparations truly can look like. I'm a firm believer if you can inherit generational wealth, you can inherit generational debt.
Yes.
The city of Manhattan Beach owes a debt to the Bruce family. The state of California owes a debt to the Bruce family, and the county of Los Angeles owes a debt to the Bruce family. And this governor today is here to fix his signature to this bill to pay that debt to the Bruce family.
Thank you, Senator. Well, as governor of California, let me do what apparently Manhattan Beach is unwilling to do, and I want to apologize to the Bruce family for the injustice that was done to them a century ago. I say that as a proud Californian, but also mindful that we always haven't had a proud past. You know, the first governor of the state of California, Governor Burnett, began his first State of the State in our state's history, talking about the war on extermination, the war against our first peoples. That was the first speech that was ever given in the state capitol after the founding of the state. I'm mindful, as someone that comes from the South Bay in the northern part of the state of California, that it was in the Bay Area that the origins of the xenophobia and the nativism and the laws, the anti-immigrant laws that exist today and persist today, they found their origins in Oakland, in Alameda, in the Bay Area. The Chinese Exclusion Act in 1884. I'm mindful every day I walk into my office, former Governor Ronald Reagan's office, but also former governor who became Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. That was a governor that oversaw the internment of the Japanese. I'm reminded every single day that his legacy is not just attached to Brown versus Board of Education, but to that atrocity. I'm mindful that people came from all around the world for riches and new beginnings, so many from the South, to come here only to discover, as was noted, that those same laws, the oppression, the bigotry, the hatred, the rank racism was thriving, not just surviving here in the West Coast of the United States. But I'm also mindful, as I stand here as Governor of California, there's only two dreams: the American dream and the California dream. No other state attaches itself to a dream. And of course, any of you, you just may need to turn around to try to understand that right here. Everybody understands that here in Manhattan Beach. This coast of dreams, Reagan referred to it. And that entrepreneurial spirit that defines the legacy of the Bruce family. And I love what you said, Senator, about what could have been. It's not speculation. You got evidence of an entrepreneurial energy that was alive and well in this family, a persistence, a grit, a determination to make things happen. Yet despite all of that, we're here today to try to make up for that. We talked about the fact that we have to reconcile history, but I love what you just said. You whispered, said, no, today we're making history. And so I'm proud as a son of this state, proud as the governor of this state, of the most diverse state in the world's most diverse democracy, to be here, Anthony, with you, to be here with your family, to be here not just for the descendants of the Bruce family, but for all of those families torn asunder because of racism.
God bless you.
All across this country and around the globe, because I really believe this can be catalytic. What we're doing here today can be done and replicated anywhere else. There's an old adage, once a mind is stretched, it never goes back to its original form.
That's right.
This is not just about an interactive board talking about our past. This is about something profoundly more impactful. And that is what you heard from so many others. It's about economic empowerment.
Yes.
We're moving from symbolism to substance. Senator Bradford, thank you for your work. Thank you to Holly Mitchell when she was in the Senate. Thank you to Assemblymember, to all of you for giving me the privilege over a year ago to sign the first reparations law in the United States of America. But today, to take it to another level with the signing of this profoundly significant bill. So with that, let's sign this bill and turn this property over.